Good morning. Welcome to our Trend On Show live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on the Link Local Broadcast Network at linklocalnetwork.com. I'm your host, Tamara Leigh, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today we're fortunate to speak with Andre Andropolis. Did I say that right? Andre?
Close, Andre.
Andre Andropolis of LegalShield. And we are at the Chiseled Grape Winery in Grafton at the corner of Port Washington and Lakefield Roads. And it is a beautiful winery, a restored old schoolhouse that we are fortunate to have as our setting for today's interview. So before we get started, I would also like to thank our sponsors for today's Trend On Show. Mediavine Marketing, simplifying social media for successful businesses and professionals through training, consulting, and management. Mediavine Marketing, maximizing your efforts and maximizing your results. Today's Trend On Show is also brought to you by me, Tamara Leigh, J. Hilburn Custom Luxury Menswear at tamaraleighllc.jhilburn.com. As a J. Hilburn style advisor, I bring the quality and convenience of custom luxury menswear made of the finest Italian fabrics to your home or office with exceptional personalized service and convenience. J. Hilburn custom shirts, suits, ties, polos, and golf shirts. AG designer jeans, shorts, and trouser accessories, and the newly launched men's formal wear for any black tie affair or wedding party needs. And Andre, this morning I have to compliment you on your J. Hilburn custom luxury shirt and tie. You look great.
Thanks.
So thank you for being our guest today on Trend On. And today we actually have an important topic to talk about with LegalShield. And most of us think of insurance as something we need for our home, our car. Rarely do we think of our legal needs as something that we might need protection from. What is the LegalShield background, or what is it about?
So the concept of legal insurance actually has been around since about 1907 in Europe. We live in the most litigious society in the world. We have 177 lawsuits filed every minute in this country. Yet still about 98% of Americans have not heard of our program. So LegalShield, again, it's been around, our company's been around for 40 years. We give individuals, families, and small businesses the ability to talk to an attorney for a flat monthly fee instead of $200 to $300 an hour.
Okay, so you're billed on a monthly fee, and that allows you access to legal services that you might otherwise not have unless you were paying a retainer.
Right,
or,
and I think sometimes just be able to pick up a phone and talk to an attorney and find out what your rights are in a given situation. Whether it's a personal question, a business question, pre-existing situation, just to bounce it off an attorney. And most people will not do that. They'll make a decision just based on cost or the fact that they don't know an attorney. They don't know who to call.
And in this day and age, you barely can walk out the door without having potentially some legal issue confront you in the course of any given day.
Exactly. I mean, it could be as simple as somebody slipping, somebody visiting your house and slipping on your sidewalk and turning around and suing you. And, there may be coverage there as part of your homeowner's policy, but people always go after assets, so they may go after you personally as well.
So maybe the key is just not to have any, live a simple life.
Exactly.
So, which actually is kind of a little bit of the background of the founder of LegalShield.
The original founder of LegalShield, Harlan Stone Cipher, was a school teacher, part-time insurance salesman. On his way home, somebody crossed the center line, hit him, put him in the hospital. He had health insurance, auto insurance, and life insurance to take care of those needs, but he wasn't prepared to be sued. He wasn't at fault, but she proceeded to sue him. And when you are sued, you have to defend yourself. Otherwise, the default is entered against you and you automatically lose. So $3,900 in legal bills in about 1969 was a great deal of money, considering he was a school teacher and he was probably making that a year. So he ended up being vindicated, but he felt that there's got to be a lot of other people out there that are dealing with these types of issues. So he began a search and found nothing here in the United States. And that's when he did some searching in Europe and found out that they're way ahead of the curve. Now in parts of Europe, you actually have to have legal insurance.
Really?
To show before you get your driver's license, you have to show proof of legal insurance because you have to be able to defend yourself if you're sued in a car accident.
So that's kind of going along with that now, where we've mandated car insurance.
Exactly.
That may be the next thing to come.
So he took the concept of prepaying for attorneys to the United States and spent, the past, almost 40 years getting it out there into the marketplace before we were purchased by a premier private equity firm just recently.
So now that you are sort of on the map in terms of legal insurance and people, would that be a proper term, or
Yeah.
is that a misnomer?
It's correct. We are licensed by the state of Wisconsin. We are a legal insurance product here.
Okay. All right. So what sort of life events, as you mentioned a few, but what might be those life events that would precipitate the need for legal coverage?
Well, I'm on my way home from here today and I get a speeding ticket. I know that I won't defend myself in court. I'm not, I'm going to use LegalShield. So if I get a speeding ticket, I'll have an attorney actually represent me in court. The nice thing about that is that I don't have to take my day off of work to represent myself. And typically the outcome is not that good when you represent yourself.
Correct.
Trust me, I've been through that before this service existed. That might be one event. But the thing is, if you pay your speeding ticket, it goes down as an admission of guilt in your Department of Motor Vehicles record.
Okay.
And so about every 6 months to a year, your auto insurance agent is going to pull your file to see if they need to adjust your premium. Now, if you have teenage drivers, or if you drive like one, those rates can be significantly impacted.
And that's usually not a factor. You're thinking, oh shoot, I got the speeding ticket, and you're thinking the immediate cost. You're not looking at the exponential cost of that one ticket.
To kind of dovetail that comment is that criminal charges that come out of a car accident, if I were to leave here today and I was involved in a car accident, and now I might not think I was at fault, but if somebody dies in that car accident, there's no auto insurance policy in the country that will provide the money needed to hire a criminal defense attorney. So if I was charged with negligent homicide, vehicular homicide, manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, and these things are happening every day to somebody, unfortunately, most families are not prepared for that. And with distracted driving,
absolutely.
whether
Right.
it's, you're on your cell phone, you slip on some ice, you maybe decide to run a light, you fall asleep, not off the wheel. How many times have most people nodded off for a second, went over the center line? That can completely alter a lot of people's lives.
In a split second.
Personally, and also financially.
Right. So LegalShield provides that. So how does LegalShield work then?
So for $26 or less per month, you have access to a variety of services. One of the first areas is the phone consultation, the ability to talk to an attorney in any area of law you have a question about and not worry about getting a bill in the mail. Having a document or contract reviewed before you sign any personal legal document. Every document that we sign was created by the other party's attorney to protect their rights. So this is a way to balance the scales of justice. So whether it's a son or daughter going off to college, leasing an apartment, leasing a car, have that contract looked at. Cell phone agreement, a warranty. I mean, we're constantly signing things, without the thought of what
Really?
the cost may be down the
Right.
road. So that's another area. What if you're in a dispute with another party? What if you have a problem with the phone company? I won't name any names here, but issues with phone companies is a big thing. And the average person is simply not going to get an attorney involved on a $50 or $75 issue. They're going to accept it. They've been taken advantage of, and they're going to move on. Contractor issue. If you have a problem with a contractor. I had about a 70-year-old woman came to me several years ago. She gave contractor $700 to replace a new door. He never came back. It turns out took the money and ran. We were able to help her, but he had some financial issues, so he was using her money to pay his bills. Attorney actually wrote a letter to this gentleman and made a phone call to him, and he returned with her $700 and an apology.
Post-haste,
This is documented, so. So that's another area. Another important area would be will preparation. About 70% of Americans do not have a will prepared. Many of them have children, have assets, have businesses. So as part of the membership, they can get their will prepared, updated each year. They can get a health directive and a power of attorney taken care of as well.
Okay, so all of those life issues that we really don't give, we give more thought actually probably to what kind of drink we're going to order for coffee.
Yeah, I think we probably spend more at McDonald's on a weekend than we do on protecting our legal rights.
Yeah.
And so for $26 a month, you have and this is just a part of what's available through LegalShield. The next area I would say would be the legal, the trial defense services.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, there's 177 lawsuits filed every minute in this country, and a large percentage of them are frivolous. But again, if you are sued, you have to defend yourself. So you're going to have to find a child defense attorney, and a good one. I mean, if you are sued, you're going to want to have a good one.
Yeah, well,
probably
sure.
$300 an hour and up. So under our plan, you get a scheduled hours. And each year that the membership renews, your scheduled hours grows.
Oh,
So it's
so
like
you're
a-
building legal,
Yeah, it's like a
legal
legal
equity.
defense fund. So,
Yeah.
so if your attorney, if you decide to sue me, and your attorney calls me and says, we're going to file a lawsuit against you, and my attorney calls your attorney and says,
Yeah.
look, my client already has 335 hours of my time at $300 an hour already paid for. Are you serious about this lawsuit?
Yeah.
Because, we're not
Wait.
too worried.
Right.
And so it's a good way to deter a lot of the frivolous lawsuits that are out there. And, if you don't have some type of protection, the first thing you're going to be doing is either going to your bank, tapping a home equity, financial assets, you're going to be tapping into, a mutual fund or something, because you're going
It
to
can
have
be
to defend the lawsuit.
financially devastating for
Absolutely.
many people in aspects. So it sounds like LegalShield allows a proactive way rather than being on the defense.
Exactly.
You're more on the offensive
It
with
may
your
never
legal
happen,
rights.
but if it does, it's nice to know that you have that. So the next area would be the IRS.
Oh,
Our favorite government body.
yeah.
So, if somebody is audited, and I have a good friend who's been a corporate and personal tax attorney for years, and he said in about 70% of the cases, in his experience, the average person that's audited, number one, doesn't show up with a tax attorney, and number two, ended up making payment arrangements for money they probably don't owe. They either don't owe the money, period, or they don't owe what the IRS states they owe. But, when you walk into an audit, without
Sweating
the
and
knowledge,
with your
right,
shoebox,
with your
right?
shoebox, exactly. You may be volunteering information you don't need to. They may be asking questions that are in violation of your rights. What if you had a tax attorney sitting on your side? So when that auditor asks you a question that is in violation of your rights, the tax attorney is going to say, you can't ask my client that question. So our members have up to 50 hours of audit assistance should they be named in a personal income tax audit. It's a good financial planning tool because there's no need to pay the IRS more than they should be getting.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
You're actually protecting some of your money. And to me, it sounds like with the LegalShield, and correct me if I'm wrong, but traditional legal services are counterintuitive to really your best interest because the law firms stand to make more money. The longer they drag out the case, the more hours they can bill. So their goal becomes sort of contrary to your own, of you're wanting resolution as soon as possible, as cheaply as possible, whereas LegalShield sounds like the goal is to be expedient and efficient and effective in resolving your legal situation.
Exactly, that's why it's worked for 40 years. There's two different business models. The first business model is, traditional, where you pick up the yellow pages and call an attorney, and number one, you hope that the guy you chose or the woman you chose is good at what they do. Sometimes just because they have the biggest ad in the yellow pages doesn't mean they're the best attorney. And then when you put a retainer down and they service your issue, what if you're not happy with the issue? American Bar Association probably is not going to get involved unless there's something really, some deep criminal element involved there. With LegalShield, our attorneys are paid a flat monthly fee. In essence, when the average person calls that law firm, they are that law firm's most important client.
So it sounds like there's some quality controls in place via LegalShield to
Corporate
ensure-
office actually monitors all the law firm's calls in real time. So when a call comes into a law firm here in Wisconsin or California, LegalShield is monitoring that daily. They know how many times that phone rings before that call is picked up. They know what the callback times are. They know what the hold times are. The only thing they don't know is obviously the personal nature of the legal issue because that's confidential.
Okay, right.
So if there is a problem with a service, LegalShield is going to know about it and they're going to get to the bottom of it. The law firm has a vested interest in solving that issue if a member didn't get, because who else is paying that law firm that kind of money every month? So it really is a win-win for everybody.
Okay.
In the attorneys that are part of our network are absolutely incredible. These are people who have been in business in many instances over 20 years. They are the #1 provider law firm in their state, and all of them would say that I went to law school to help people, but unfortunately I'm in an industry that has priced most of the people that I'd like to help out of the market, so I have to turn those people away. Now that they are part of the LegalShield network, they realize that because of the flat monthly fee business model, they can service a lot more people and do it efficiently.
Well, that's an amazing thing for people to realize that you have that. I remember talking to you prior to the show today of just that the difference of that feeling of not being taken advantage, that you can defend yourself no matter what your circumstances are if you have the access through LegalShield and legal protection. So it's amazing that we've gotten in such a litigation society, but yet most people don't really look at that when in their financial planning and what a value it is. So is there ever a point of where you pay that monthly fee and then you're not able to access a certain level of legal services?
That's a great point. About 70-80% of everything our members call about is covered in some part of the plan. Things that wouldn't be covered in full obviously would be like a bankruptcy, a divorce, a child custody, business incorporation. But the nice thing about that is they're going to get a 25% discount off the corporate hourly rate in that particular area of law. So number one, they're going to get a qualified attorney, experienced, and they're also going to get the discount. And everybody, you know, likes to save a little bit of money here and there. So.
And I should probably ask, just to ask this, although, is there ever a circumstance where someone would not benefit by having LegalShield, or is it really back to that win-win?
I think everybody can. I mean, you know, 80% of middle-income Americans are locked out of the legal system. That is our primary membership base. About 10%, you know, the people that are on a legal aid or need a public defender, and the top 10% of wealthy people have their own attorneys. Right. But, you know, we have executives, wealthy people who have this service. You know, they're not mad at their money. If they can access a high-quality law firm for a flat monthly fee instead of $300 to $400 an hour, they're going to do it. Well, it's really asset protection on their part. They could spend the money, but they're protecting not having someone go after their money. Yeah, and so if they can, you know, just have a simple question, you know, and they can spend $400 an hour to get that question answered, or they can spend $26 a month, and have that unlimited access for the rest of their life. It's a pretty easy decision for them. Okay. So is it through, if someone was interested in getting LegalShield protection, how would they go about doing that? They could contact me, you know, via my cell phone or through my website. Most of the enrollments are done online. It's fast, efficient, usually processing within about 48 hours. There's some videos as well, so there's a lot of educational information on there, because most people are in the learning phases right now of so it's like you have a representative or a contact person, and then they act as your right. I mean, we're independent associates. We're independent contractors. So that's the only way that an individual or a family can access our network of law firms. Okay. And then now I wanted to get to, because it's a fairly big area of legal ramifications that most people are not aware of, and that is the identity theft areas. Yes, identity theft is the fastest growing crime in the country. You know, it's not always on everybody's radar screen, but it's on mine because I study this every day. About 11 million adult victims last year of identity theft, about 500,000 child victims. It's the fastest growing crime in the world. Child identity? Child identity theft is also, child identity theft is the fastest growing form of identity theft. A large percentage of identity theft stems from overseas, and whether it stems from overseas or over here, the problem is that law enforcement has so many other things they're dealing with, and it's kind of a catch and release program. Okay. You know, criminals can sit behind a computer and hack a large network, or they can hack, you know, a bank or whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways that they hire people to get a job within a hospital or a daycare center or a school system, and they're in essence a mole, and they're there to steal information. And so there's no way to stop it. In fact, the Federal Trade Commission has said that it's not if we're going to be a victim, it's a matter of when. And it's probably going to be through a data breach, because most large companies out there, as much as they try and they say that their customers' data is protected, the evidence is clear. It's in the news every day. You're constantly hearing about a data breach that affected, 2 million credit card consumers.
Right. Well,
So
right. Or a password
it's
breach.
a growing crime, and criminals are actually stepping away from robberies in some of the other areas where they raise money for themselves, basically. So identity theft is easy because they can hack a database, can steal information, they can take out loans in your name.
Safe. They're not.
And there's very little chance they're going to get caught. Even if they do get caught, they're typically released fairly quickly, unless it's a large data breach and they have, enormous information on this criminal. But even then, these guys only spend a couple years in jail, and they're back doing what they do best.
Because it's profitable and effective as a means of, so you have almost career identity theft people
Exactly.
out there.
And child identity theft is something I really wanted to touch on. 500,000 child victims every year. It's something that criminals have found that children have a pristine Social Security number.
Okay, I was going
Right?
to say, how does that work then if you're stealing a child's identity?
So there's a number of ways. They might be someone that's working in a child care center. Most likely someone that's worked in a hospital who's accessed this data breach or accessed the hospital through a data breach. But a child has a unblemished Social Security number. And they have an algorithm now, the criminals have an algorithm, a software program that actually can determine what their Social Security number is even before it's assigned to that child. I've read a number of stories of a child that's now 7 years old who was a victim 7 years before they were born, before the number was actually assigned to their name.
Really?
And most parents aren't going to find out their child's a victim of identity theft until they turn 18, when they apply for their first student loan, or maybe they're leasing an apartment or trying to lease a vehicle, and that's when the parents find out that the damage is already done.
Wow. So you can have essentially 18 years of someone using that identity and you have no idea at the same time. And I know when we talked about medical identity theft, that's not only harmful financially, but physically and health-wise, there's a huge issue.
It's an issue it's definitely in the news, but I don't know that it's in the mass media like it should be. Medical identity theft is probably the most dangerous because when you get two medical files mixed up, for example, let's say I was involved in a serious car accident and I needed a blood transfusion. Well, if someone has stolen my identity and my file is now merged with another file, and I get the wrong blood type, or I'm treated as a diabetic, or I have a heart condition, there could be some serious side effects.
Because someone else has been using that Social Security as their medical ID. Oftentimes you go to the doctor and it's like, what's your social? And that's how your records are tracked.
Exactly. In hospital systems, there's a lot of privacy laws in place, including HIPAA laws to protect our files. Because of the laws that are designed to actually protect our privacy, make it very difficult to unmerge those files, and that's when you need to get an attorney involved. So medical identity theft is something that you probably don't hear in the news a lot. There's been several major breaches right here in Milwaukee. I'm not going to name the hospitals, but it's happening all over the country.
Well, and that's huge in terms of life or death. It's not just your financial life or death, which can be devastating in and of itself, but when you're talking about the nature of medical records and how do you unmerge that once you've got files figured out, that's probably going to be way overwhelming because first you're distraught that this has happened to you, that you're a victim, and then to have the clarity of mind, I would think, to know even where do you start and getting yourself out of that situation.
If you're a victim in multiple states, which many people are, there's a lot of different jurisdictions, and so that's when you need access to a nationwide network of law firms, which LegalShield has. There's about 7 areas of identity theft. There's about 52 different subsets of identity theft. And so we have a partnership with a company called Kroll. Kroll, and it's always important to know who the people are providing the services. So LegalShield has been in business for 40 years. Kroll's been in business for 40 years. They're the #1 risk consulting firm in the world. To give you an idea of what they do, when the Enron scandal happened, their team of forensic accountants and fraud investigators were hired to bring back about $16.5 billion that were hidden in different accounts offshore. So this is the same group of individuals that are working on a member's behalf to restore their identity if they're a victim of identity theft. There's a lot of people out there providing services, identity theft services, but almost all of them are providing what's called resolution, meaning it's putting the burden on the consumer to restore their own identity. And it can become a very complex task. and the average person doesn't have the time, the resource, the expertise.
Or the wherewithal.
Or probably the money
Yeah.
to do that. So Kroll not only provides the monitoring of our files, our credit files, they provide an up-to-date credit report, score, and analysis so you know where you're at. And then they step in and will restore your identity to its pre-theft state or your children's pre-theft state and address all 7 types of identity theft. And then in closing, I would just say that the reason that we have a partnership with Kroll is that 70 to 80% of all identity theft situations require an attorney to get involved, because as an identity, as a victim of identity theft, you're actually treated as a perpetrator. You have to prove that you are in fact not the thief.
So it's guilty before innocent?
Exactly, and that's why an attorney has to get involved to write a letter, make a phone call to the affected institution like Department of Motor Vehicles, Social Security Administration, to to legally prove that you are the victim of identity theft.
Wow.
So that's why we've come together with the 2 companies.
Okay, so you have the power, actually, when you said that about the multiple states and everything, that really is an advantage too, of where you might hire your local attorney because they're your, brother-in-law's friend, but they might not have the vast resources and some of your issues that you really do need a national or global network.
Right. Attorneys focus on 1 or 2 areas of law. They're probably licensed in maybe 1 or 2 states. So what happens if you have, a major issue in California? You're kind of stuck unless you have a program in place that addresses multiple states.
Okay, so in closing too, we are almost out of time. Why don't you once again give us the information of how someone might be able to find out more about LegalShield?
Okay, they can contact me directly on my cell phone. It's 414-218-1495. I'd be more than happy to send some information in the mail, or they can go to my website. It's Andre, ANDREJ.LegalShield.com. And there's a great deal of information there. There's even a couple of videos that they can watch to get an overview of our services.
And maybe another one soon.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that information. And really, I know I've caught a few times on TV, John Stossel? Am I saying
Sure.
that right? Yeah. Illegal everything. And it's like, that is about it. You can barely, cross the street in some way, something is wrong.
He's been very good at raising awareness. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really is. We just don't know, because we operate, I think we function on, we're Americans, we're free.
Seat of our pants, right?
Yeah, until all of a sudden, boom, there it is,
Right.
and you're having to deal with it. So again, I like that proactive nature of LegalShield. So thank you for sharing all that valuable information with us. I would also like to thank our other sponsors of Trend On, Mandatech, the Chicago area technology company that has the right solution for your business, increasing your visibility and profit with technology. ZipBoss.com, a professional business cloud built and maintained by Metasoft Inc. ZipBoss, create, market, succeed, where powerful websites are born. And Daniel Stoika Tax Accounting at danielstoika.com, minimizing your tax liability and maximizing your net worth, providing you with professional consulting, accounting, and tax preparation services with a personal dedication. And I would also like to say, join us next week on Trend On, live on the Link Local Broadcast Network at 10 a.m. on Blog Talk Radio. Our guest next week will be the author Jim Rice of the Giant Cheeseheads in the, it's NFL kickoff week. And of course, I love, who doesn't love the Packers? And Jim has taken a different angle on the Packer history by pairing it with the Giants. So I actually ran into him downtown Cedarburg. He was wearing a big Giant cheese head. And I said, hey, what's up with the big cheese? And he said, well, he did a history and wrote a book. And so that will be our next week guest and should be very fun. So I would invite you all back for that. So thank you very much, Andre, for joining us again. We look forward to seeing you next time on Trend On the Link Local Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Tamara Leigh. Thank you for joining us.